Hello viewers, welcome to this session and the students of the Postgraduate Diploma in Environmental and Occupational Health and the course code for today is MEV002 Environmental and Occupational Hazards. Today we would discuss the topic plant and plant products and their allergens and the allergic reactions that they cause. For example, whenever you go nearby some field or even when you ingest some food item, some things may be allergic to some people. For example, peanut butter, or some people can have a buckwheat allergy. So this may be because of certain compounds which are present in the plant or the plant products, and they could be ingested by the person. And even when you go near some plants, for example the parthenium, okay, when people go near these plants, they can have some kind of a skin allergy or a dermatitis and eczema and other kind of depigmenting disorders. So all these are due to certain allergic reactions that are caused in the human body due to the secondary metabolites that can be produced in the plants, and also due to certain other irritants that are present in the plant and the plant products. Now in the same way, there can also be the flavonoids, then you can have the mycotoxins, you can have terpene compounds, you can have alkaloids, glycoalkaloids, the coumarins and so on. So there are so many things and constituents that are present in the plant products themselves, and on ingestion or inhalation, even certain milled particles and the flour mill particle, even when you go near the wheat mill. So certain people will be allergic, they could have gluten intolerance. All this can create certain allergic reactions in the human body. Let us now see these things in detail. So plants and allergy. Now when we have to discuss these, there are plants that contain latex, gum and resin. This may be, for example, the balsam plant, and they can also have the bristles that can have a corrosive or an irritant action on the skin. So such plants and the plant products, they fall under the category of the biological hazards because they are toxic and hazardous in nature, and they can also cause mild to, in certain cases, severe and even fatal poisoning and infectious diseases in the human beings. Gardeners, the landscape workers and the nursery workers, all those who are involved in these plant products, they are typically exposed to the plants and they may initiate the allergic skin response. The spikes in the cactus plants, certain cactus plant also, they can have the irritant property, and they can also have the tumor inducing property that could also be hazardous to human health. Now how do we define allergens? So these are basically the foreign particles or foreign molecules, and they can induce an abnormal immunological response involving the IgE antibodies that can result in clinical allergy. An Austrian pediatrician, Clemens E. von Pirquet, in 1874 to 1929, he coined the word allergy in 1906 from the Greek word allos, that means different or strange, and ergon, that means activity. So that is where the word allergen or the allergy came from. The route of exposure of the plant particles or the plant products. Mainly it could be due to the ingestion of a food particle or a plant. It could be due to inhalation of the pollen or the spores that are found in the plants, as I gave you an example of parthenium. It can also be through skin contact or infection when your skin is coming in contact with certain bristles or the needle fiber like plants. Some of the most potent plants which have the allergen, they are the urushiol, which are found in the poison ivy and the poison oak. The photo or the figure that you are finding in this slide is that of the poison ivy. So these are poisonous in nature and they can create a contact dermatitis and irritant behavior in human beings. Secondary plant products. So this we discussed about what are the routes of their exposure and how they can get into the human body. Now a number of them, of these secondary plant products or the secondary metabolites, they can also act as the allergens. For example, sesquiterpene tones, the tulipin A and its precursors, quinones and their precursors, polyacetylens, and there are also some compounds like psoralins. They are phototoxic and they cause the skin lesions after contact and exposure to the skin. So even when they come in contact with the skin and due to the sensitivity, because they are exposed to the sun, then after that, after some kind of a short duration, then there will be a reddening of the skin, they can be itching, and then that can create some kind of the skin depigmentation and depigmenting disorders. There can also be seed allergens, so those that are coming from the seeds themselves. In this, they contain proteases and alpha amylase inhibitors. For example, wheat, barley and rye. These are three of the plants. They contain a range of the allergens. cause. Prolamins, they cause the food-dependent exercise-induced anaphylactic problem and also atopic dermatitis. The same proteins are also active in the celiac disease and in dermatitis herpetiformis. So these are certain disorders, of the skin, of the gastrointestinal system, and they can also be induced by the different type of the seeds, for example, wheat, barley, and the rye. Now, in the case of wheat and soybean, it is specifically written on the food labels that this product is safe for those who are gluten intolerant or lactose intolerant, or they are gluten free and they are lactose free. So that way they can be digested easily by those people who have this problem. Now, the wheat and the soybean especially, they have the peroxidases and they have been identified as allergens, for example, in the Baker's asthma disease. In the soybean, the two major storage globulins, that is a beta-conglycinin and the glycinin, these are the major allergens. And these two figures that you are seeing on this slide is one of the wheat and one of the soybean. So these also create certain allergic reaction in the humans. The Parthenium allergy. Parthenium, you are seeing, this is a menace weed and this grows widely in many of the places, and once this starts growing, then it stops the other plants. It could be ornamental or even your something which is food related. So it stops the other plants from growing. So this is a dominant species, and it produces more than 3,000 million pollen grains per square kilometer during the flowering season, and this intensely, like many of them, you will find that they will have these kind of dermatitis and skin allergic reaction even when they pass by these Parthenium fields. So this causes allergies, it can cause rhinitis, it can cause dermatitis, it can also cause certain eye disorders, then it can cause eczema, then itching of the mouth, there can also be swelling of the mouth and the lips. So all this is caused by the Parthenium. Now, milk also, when the dairy, there is a livestock, when that feeds on these Parthenium contaminated food, then the fodder, then they have a disease which is called as a bitter milk disease. That is specially because of Parthenium, and this contains a constituent called as parthenin. So this parthenin is toxic, and that is responsible for the bitter milk disease, where the livestock, where the fodder is polluted with the Parthenium leaves. So this is a menace worldwide, and it should be controlled. Otherwise, as I told you, it grows extensively and it prevents the other normal plants from growing and from flowering. So biological control methods and certain other weed control, how to stop the infestation of this weed, all this being employed, and such plants and the bioherbicides and nematodes, snails and competitive plants, they can be used in order to control these Parthenium allergic problems. Trees and allergies. So the carpenters and those who are involved in the varnishing and the furniture manufacturing industry, the wood painters, they are all exposed to fine dust of the wood dust. So this could be from various trees. It could be spruce, it could be from the deodar, from the oak, from the cedar, from pine trees. So there could be many type of the wood that they are handling for several different purposes. So the common trees which can cause irritation to the skin, they involve the western red cedar, acacia, then birch. Okay, these plants you are finding, you can see here the mahogany and the maple tree, the pine and the spruce. So all these cause certain allergic reactions. In the same way, the birch allergy. So this is planted in yards and other landscaping, and they also cause sneezing and allergy when people come near these trees. They grow throughout the continental US except in the southernmost and the westernmost states, and their pollen also triggers the allergy. So they cause the sneezing and other allergic conditions. In this slide, we can see some more photographs of the trees, that is that of the cedar, the oak, the pine tree, the Bermuda grass, the nettle and the sagebrush. All these are known to cause certain kind of atopic dermatitis, skin irritant reactions and certain other rhinitic allergies. So what are the types of the dermatitis and the dermatosis? There are three types of dermatosis. One is the irritant contact dermatitis. This constitutes 70 to 80% of the same. Allergic contact dermatitis, also referred to as ACD. This constitutes 20 to 25% of the dermatosis. There is contact urticaria, psoriasis, photosensitivity, eczema, acne and depigmenting disorders. And there are also occupational dermatosis. For example, those workers who are exposed to the cotton dust in the cotton industries, they have a disease called as the Monday fever or the bisonosis. That is because of the inhalation of these cotton fibers. So the same way, occupational dermatosis can be from the leaves, from the vegetables, from the fruits, from the flowers and the vegetable dust. Now let us come on to the natural plant toxins. So the plants themselves, they can have certain toxic compounds which may not be toxic to the plant themselves, but this may be produced in response to certain stress reactions, due to climate stress or due to some predator and prey relationship that exists in the ecosystem. So it wants to escape from certain microorganisms from the attack of the pest. So in that case, these plants can produce certain toxins, but these toxins can be hazardous, can be toxic to the human beings when they consume the same. So they are present naturally in the fruits, in the vegetables that are common food sources, and some phytochemical and secondary metabolites are produced by the plants. They can be toxin-like substances causing the health problems. For example, in algae and the plankton. So there are dinoflagellates, there are planktons, they can produce certain toxins. When fishes consume these toxins, it is not allergic or it is not toxic to the fishes themselves. But when human beings consume these fishes containing the toxins produced by the algae or the dinoflagellates or the plankton, then they can be toxic to the human being. So they produce certain compounds which are not toxic to the fishes or to the plant themselves, but they turn to be toxic to the humans on their consumption. So when the people eat the fish or the shellfish, for example, it can be mussels, it could be oysters, then they can have certain toxic reactions and the poisoning. Giving an example is the algal toxins and the aquatic biotoxins. These are toxins that are formed by the algae in ocean or in fresh water. The examples include the shellfish, mussel, scallops and the oysters which contain these algae. They can cause diarrhea, vomiting, tingling, paralysis in humans, nervous disorders. Ciguatera fish poisoning. This is a very famous poisoning and toxic disease which is encountered in many people, and this is caused due to the fishes that are contaminated by the dinoflagellates and that produce the ciguatoxins. So the fishes such as barracuda, dog snapper, the king mackerel, they can all harbor these ciguatoxins, and the symptoms include the nausea and neurological symptoms where there is paralysis, paresis, there can be vision problems, there can be numbness of the fingers, there can be tingling sensation in the toes, in the fingers, all this, so they create certain neurological symptoms. The toxins can disrupt the entire nervous system, and that way it can cause neurotoxicity to the human beings. Now there can be cyanogenic glycosides. So not only it is the plants that are ingested by the animals harboring the same and then the human beings ingesting them, direct ingestion of certain food compounds like the tapioca or the bamboo roots and almonds, they can contain the cyanogenic glycosides. So these are known as phytotoxins and they can occur in about 2000 plant species. The symptoms are acute cyanide intoxication, rapid respiration, there can be dizziness, headache, vomiting, diarrhea, mental confusion and cyanosis. So these are the root of the plants. You can see in this figure, you can see the tapioca, then they can also have the cassava roots, then the bamboo roots, the almonds. All this contain the glycosides which can turn to be toxic in nature. Furocoumarins. These are found in the parsnips. Parsnips are related to the carrots and the parsley. So it's a combination of that which we refer to as the parsnips. Then you have the celery roots. We have a lemon, lime, the grapefruit, bergamot and some medicinal plants. So they all contain the furocoumarins. They can be toxic to some people. So they are basically stress toxins which are released in response to stress such as the physical damage to the plant. And mostly they can cause mild gastrointestinal upset and they can cause skin reactions and the dermatitis. So these are the phytotoxins that are present in certain plant compounds. The lectins. You might have observed that sometimes, when you eat dal makhani or when you eat rajma, you may find there is gaseous distension or bloating. And for some people, immediately you feel like nauseating or vomiting, maybe when they consume in large numbers. So it may be because these beans are not soaked properly for the sufficient number of hours, and sometimes it may not suit a person due to cellular aging or even after certain age. The heavy compounds cannot be digested well by certain people. So the lectins, some bean varieties, they contain these compounds are known as the lectins, and they can cause severe stomachache, vomiting and the diarrhea. So these lectins are found in the bean compounds, and if they are not soaked properly, the dried beans, when they are not soaked properly for more than 12 hours, then and after that they should be also boiled well. They have a toxic nature and they can cause toxic problems. In the same way, mycotoxins. So these are harbored on the corn, in makka or the corn that you find which is locally available. So this is a natural toxin and that is produced by these corn species. They are referred to as the mycotoxins, and they grow on the cereals, on the dry fruits, on the nuts, on the spices. This mold growth, because it is a fungal growth, so this mold growth can occur during the harvest, it can occur before harvest, after harvest, even in the godowns or in the storage places where they are stored. There also they can be formed. So this is formed during the damp and the warm conditions, and also in the humid conditions. Then these mycotoxins can be formed. In the same way, aflatoxins, they are also the toxins, and they are chemically stable, and they can also survive the food processing conditions sometimes. They can cause severe illnesses and induce cancers and also immunodeficiency in certain cases. Solanins and the chaconine. So these are produced by the Solanaceae species of the family Solanaceae that mainly belongs to the potato family, the sweet potato family, and so on. So here is the photograph of the tomato. So the tomatoes, the potatoes, the eggplants, they all contain natural toxins called as the solanins and the chaconins, which are the glycoalkaloids. So the higher concentrations are found in the potato sprouts and the green tomatoes. So therefore you would have seen when you keep the potatoes, you find that easily after a week or when it is so hot and humid, the potatoes in your kitchen, they naturally start sprouting. So this potato sprouts, you should be very careful. They have to be stored properly, otherwise they can be toxic and they can create certain toxic reactions in the human body. So therefore these potatoes should be preserved properly, and they should be stored in a dark and the cool place and not in humid and warm conditions. So here in this figure you can see the potato sprouts. So these plants are actually producing the toxins in response to stress like bruising, to UV light, to the microorganisms, and also attacks from the insect pest and the herbivores. On the right hand side what you see is the sprouts that is from the sweet potato. So you should prevent them from the sprouting and the toxic conditions. Mushrooms. Though mushrooms are very tasty to eat, even when we go to a restaurant or a hotel, we should be careful about the food labels and the type of mushrooms that are being used in the dishes. So there are certain wild mushrooms which are known to be poisonous in nature, and they can contain toxins such as the muscimol and the muscarine. They can induce vomiting, diarrhea, confusion, visual disturbances and hallucinations, and in certain cases it could be fatal and cause poisoning. The photograph that you find here is the red cap mushroom, which is poisonous in nature. So the poisonous mushroom, they can also cause a delayed onset of the infectious disease, and they can have a toxic effect on the liver. So it can cause hepatotoxicity on the kidney, causing the kidney toxicity, nephrotoxicity, and on the nervous system causing neurotoxicity. So cooking and peeling sometimes may not inactivate the toxins. So therefore we should avoid the wild mushrooms, and unless it is definitely identified as non-poisonous, then it is safe to consume these mushrooms. Here again you find the red cap mushroom, which is one of the wild varieties and which is poisonous in nature. Now the pyrrolizidine alkaloids. Certain times we are fond of having the green tea. So there are several varieties of the green tea. They are coming from the fruits, from the leaves of certain plants, and the essence is sometimes very good for the human body. But there are certain species, around 600 plant species coming from the Asteraceae, Boraginaceae and the Fabaceae family. They have toxins and they contain these alkaloids, and they are weeds that can grow in the field and contaminate the food crops. So this can have the DNA damaging potential leading to cancer. The photographs that you find here are the fiddle neck and the crotalaria. So they both have the pyrrolizid alkaloids which can cause the adverse health effects. Buckwheat. These are again aeroallergens, and even when inhaling these milled flour particles, then they can cause asthma and rhinitis, and it can cause pruritus, the gastrointestinal disturbances, urticaria and the anaphylaxis. So when this buckwheat is milled into a flour, and that flour atta can be used for various preparations, that can be allergic to certain people. Bagasosis is a disease, occupational disease of the lung to those workers who are working in the sugarcane industry. industry. So this was reported first in 1955 in the paper manufacturing firm near Calcutta, and now we find that the sugarcane waste, this fiber waste, it is being used in manufacturing the rayon and the cardboard and so on. So they can be used effectively. So finally, how can we protect ourselves? Do not assume that if anything they say it is organic, it is natural, then it is safe to eat. Discard the discolored or the moldy food. Discard food that is stale or that has an unusual sight and a taste, and do not consume the mushrooms, unless they have been identified as the non-poisonous. Risk assessment. So this forms a very important part of any study. The World Health Organization, in collaboration with the Food and Agricultural Organization, is responsible for assessing the risk of the food and the plant allergen products to the human being, and also of the natural toxins, and they recommend also the measures for adequate protections. So this food assessment of the natural toxin, it is used by the governments and the Codex Alimentarius Commission to establish standards and to provide the risk management advice and to control and prevent the contamination. So thereby people are safe to choose their food product, and when they have these kind of labels, then the people are safe to choose the food that they eat. And also you need to know your own system, and we need to be well informed and read the articles of certain kind of the allergic reactions that food, plant and the plant allergen cause, and the toxins that they themselves consist of, and the toxic reactions that they cause, the secondary metabolitic, the toxic reactions that can start and proliferate in the human body. I hope you have had a good understanding of this small topic, that was plant and plant allergens and the allergic reactions that they cause. Thank you for your patient listening.